All right, today we're going to dive into a world that's totally invisible to us, but it holds the keys to life, death, and, well, pretty much how our whole planet works. We are talking about bacteria, the ancient, powerful, and, let's be honest, the undisputed rulers of the microscopic world. So, let me just start with a question for you. Forget the dinosaurs, forget humanity for a second. What single life form has ruled this planet for over 3.5 billion years, shaping it right from the very beginning? You guessed it, it's bacteria. They were here long before us, and they'll be here long after we're gone. For billions of years, they've been multiplying, adapting, and basically engineering the entire world around them. It's their planet, we're just kind of living on it. Okay. So to really get what bacteria are all about, we have to start with the first, most fundamental divide in all of life. I'm talking about the split that separates them from literally everything else you can see, from the tallest tree right down to you and me. And it all comes down to this one major difference: prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. On one side, you have us, the eukaryotes. Our cells are pretty big. They're complex, packed with all these specialized little compartments called organelles. Then you have bacteria, the prokaryotes. They are just streamlined survival machines. Way smaller, way simpler, and always just a single cell. But the biggest difference, the real kicker, is how they store their genetic blueprint, their DNA. Our cells, the eukaryotic ones, keep their DNA locked away safe and sound inside a secure vault we call the nucleus. Bacteria? Nope. They just have their DNA coiled up in a simple clump called the nucleoid. It's messy, but it's super efficient, easy to get to, and always ready for action.
So if they're not like ourselves, what are they actually made of? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the essential blueprint of a typical bacterium.
The best way to think of a bacterium is like a tiny, self-contained factory. You've got the protective cell wall, which is like the armor. Inside, you have the main DNA blueprint, these little protein-building machines called ribosomes, and you've also got these extra little circles of DNA floating around called plasmids. Now, remember that word, plasmids. We're definitely coming back to those because they are a huge deal.
Now, that cell wall armor I just mentioned, it's not just a simple shell. It's actually the key to how we classify almost all bacteria, splitting them into two huge groups based on how that wall is built. And this, right here, is one of the most important concepts in all of medicine.
I mean, think about it. When you get a bad infection, how on earth does a doctor know which antibiotic to give you? They can't just guess, right? They need to know exactly what kind of enemy they're up against. And the very first step is figuring out what kind of armor that enemy is wearing. And the way they figure that out is with a technique that's been around for, get this, 140 years. It's called the Gram stain. At its core, it's just a simple dye test that sorts all bacteria into one of two teams, gram-positive or gram-negative.
Okay, so this breaks it down perfectly. Gram-positive bacteria, they have a super thick wall made of this stuff called peptidoglycan. Think of it like thick plate armor. Gram-negatives, on the other hand, have a really thin layer of that stuff, but they add an extra outer membrane on top, like an energy shield. And this one difference changes everything, including why drugs like penicillin were great against gram-positives, but not so well against gram-negatives.
So here's how the stain actually works. First, you add this deep purple dye. The thick, spongy wall of the gram-positive bacteria just soaks that purple dye right up and holds on tight, so they turn a really deep purple.
But the gram-negative bacteria, that extra outer shield I mentioned, blocks the purple dye from really getting in. So when you wash it, most of the purple comes right off. Then you add a second, pink dye, and that's the color they end up holding on to. So you get this clear result, purple or pink. And that is the first, most critical clue you have when you're trying to figure out what you're fighting. But, I've been talking a lot about infections and enemies, and that's really only half the story. The vast majority of bacteria out there aren't harmful at all. In fact, we literally couldn't survive without them. This really shows you the incredible two-sided nature of the bacterial world. I mean, for every harmful bug that can make you sick, there are thousands of helpful ones that we rely on. They help us make food like yogurt and cheese, and they're crucial for our health, helping us digest our meals. They are both creators and destroyers, a source of life and a source of disease.
What this means is that we are in a deep partnership with them. The trillions of bacteria living in and on our bodies, our microbiome, are like our invisible allies. They're not just sitting there, they're actively training our immune system,
producing vitamins we can't make ourselves, and protecting us from the truly bad microbes. And in the environment, they're the ultimate recycling crew.
Okay, this brings us to our final point. And honestly, it's maybe the most mind-blowing thing about bacteria. Their ability to adapt and evolve at just lightning speed. And the way they do it is through a kind of secret, microscopic internet.
Remember those little bonus circles of DNA I mentioned earlier? Those are the plasmids. The absolute best way to think about them is like a tiny little software update on a USB drive. Each plasmid is a small portable package of genes that isn't part of the main DNA, and bacteria can just pass them around to each other.
So, what kind of software is on these plasmids? We're talking about the ultimate survival cheats. A single plasmid can carry the genetic code for antibiotic resistance, or the instructions to make a deadly toxin, or even a brand new ability to eat something they couldn't before. It's like getting a superpower. And they share these superpowers through a process called conjugation. It's wild. One bacterium literally builds a tiny little bridge over to another one. It copies its plasmid, that little USB drive, and sends the copy right across the bridge. And just like that, in an instant, the second bacterium has a brand new ability, like being totally resistant to an antibiotic. This right here is why the rise of superbugs is so terrifying. This isn't slow and steady evolution from parent to kid. This is what we call horizontal gene transfer. They're sharing secrets with complete strangers, sometimes even different species of bacteria. And that means a single resistance gene can just rip through a bacterial population like wildfire, creating massive danger in a shockingly short amount of time.
So that leaves us with one final, pretty sobering thought. We humans, we pride ourselves on our big brains and our technology, but we are in an arms race against a 3.5 billion-year-old survival network that lets microscopic life evolve faster than we can invent new medicines to fight it. So when you look at this incredible evolutionary race, you have to ask yourself, who is really winning?